Welcome to the next breakthrough. In the world of finance, getting a loan can be quite slow, complex, and often a very frustrating process. We can be bogged down by a lot of legacy systems and, frankly, mountains of paperwork. If you've ever gone through that process, and what if you could simplify all of that entire journey from the first inquiry to the settlement, and do it, very quickly? So our guest today didn't just ask the question; she actually went out and found a solution for it and built the answer. And that's Leann Jones. She's the co-founder and CEO of Nimo Industries, and that is a Melbourne-based FinTech. And they're fundamentally changing and rewiring the engine of digital lending. And she's not your typical CEO and high tech, tech founder. Her career path has included roles in policy and planning within the Victorian Police Force, and she's also driven change, organizational transformation, within large companies such as NAB. Armed with that kind of perspective on seeing how things were done in some of Australia's biggest banks, it's where she witnessed firsthand how that internal complexity and having those legacy systems potentially held the industry back. She co-founded Nemo, and they created really a breakthrough solution. And what they have is a really powerful SaaS platform that's powering banks and lenders to digitize and accelerate the entire lending lifecycle. And I'm really happy to have her on the show today and to be able to share a little bit about her background, as well as what makes Nemo different, and really dive into some things, Leanne, about AI and digital transformation and what you're experiencing in your part of industry. So welcome.
Thanks, Sean. Thank you for having me.
Now, yeah, I was mentioning that your career path is not probably typical for a fintech CEO. Do you want to tell us a little bit about, it said you were in the Victoria Police Force, and then you kind of went into other things as well. So just share a little bit about who you are and your background.
Yeah, it's not a classic story. I never thought I would be in financial services running my own company, to be frank. I guess as the world turns and you have many different paths that lead to where we get to, mine was yet not a classic story. In fact, my family at one point really struggled to describe what I did. My nickname became Chandler for a period of time. You know, the character on Friends, no one ever quite knew what he did, but he did something really important. So for my background, for what it's worth, my background's in organisational psychology. So my first professional job was in the police department where I worked in civil law and kind of just followed a bouncing ball. I ended up doing a lot of leadership development, executive coaching. I worked in an org psych firm for many years. So I was long and deep. And honestly, my passion is about helping people and really making a difference. And I was at that front line doing that for many, many years. And then found myself working. I made the leapfrog over to financial services, where I went over there to do executive coaching, leadership development, and the like. And I thought, look, it's a really good opportunity for me to extend my cachet of experiences in different industries, etc. So I went into there being an in-house facilitator, leadership expert. And as it happens, when you're in enterprise or in a large organization, you become very, very knowledgeable across the board. And over a period of time, I found myself then being deployed to a number of digital transformation projects. So that's kind of then where the intersection between my background took me to digital and to financial services specifically. And I never really had a title per se. I just would get assigned to these big projects of work that involved all the big consulting firms and was struck by the amount of money, resources, the difficulty, as you alluded to at the beginning, Sean. Not only do customers experience difficulty when trying to go through a home loan process or a lending process, the banks, there's incredible barriers to being digital. I think at the time there was something like 36 single sign-ons. There were egos at play and politics, and it was really difficult to get decisions made, let alone for change to stick. And that's where I was involved in a lot of projects. So inevitably, I became to know a lot around financial services and in particular digital transformation. And if I think about where Nemo was born, it was actually at that time when I was working in one of the majors that I'd met Peter, who's my co-founder, and yes, my husband. We're a husband and wife team. He is an ex-banker. Well, he was a banker. He'd been CEO of mutual banks, and he's also the technologist. I'm the people person, culture and strategy. And At the time, we were deployed to a couple of projects together, and we thought, God, there's got to be a better way to do this stuff. And I wonder how the mid-tier banks and the smaller mutual banks and other non-bank lenders are doing this, because it's a very difficult problem to tackle, how to digitalize. And so we saw a real opportunity in the market to digitalize the process. So guess in simple terms, we came from within financial services. It's not like we're a software company and set out to do something, academic. We saw the problem from within, and I guess in a way that's why we are your classic fintech. We're not a software company. We're not a bank. We come from the problem from within, and that's part of our secret sauce to our success.
No, it's really interesting because right now you see a lot of software companies, especially in the time we're in now with AI, where you can develop product that's probably a POC quite quickly or
Yep.
some kind of experiment, and people go to market, they raise money, and they basically see where the problem is. They have a hammer and they're looking everywhere for a nail.
Yeah,
But I think that's
100%.
for you. You're saying start with the business problem first. Yeah, like recognize where is the pain happening and try to address that versus I develop something that's kind of cool, which a lot of tech people in tech love to do that, right? It's really
Yeah,
cool fuzzy stuff, but what is it actually? What's the business value out of it?
spot on. Like we're not tech people excited about tech. We're actually excited about how to help the end user and banks and purpose-led banks as well to do things better. And we have this thing called a pandemic that really fast forwarded the appetite to get digital, right? But we knew that there was a need in the market to do it. And so we were excited about helping the end user and helping banks and purpose-led banks to get digital. And it's a bit of a different appetite. You've got the majors, they've got the deep pockets and different ways of doing things, and that's right for them. And there's that whole discussion around buy versus build, and they certainly try to build it themselves. My experience and not and across many of the majors and the bigger banks, it's an experience of perhaps sticky taping together different on-point solutions to try to build an ecosystem. Whereas we have done the reverse. We've built the ecosystem when the very clear pain point is helping banks and lenders to do it simply, to do it economically, to do it in a user-friendly manner, but ultimately to help the end customer. My litmus test in starting the business was always about, I call her Sally on the farm. She's a fictitious character in my head. And, when I think about Sally on the farm, she has a couple of kids, she's on the tractor, she's farming, she needs to release some equity on her property or borrow some money for a particular asset. How does Sally on the farm, who works thousands away from a branch, access the services of a bank, a lender, or maybe something that might be a complex loan when she's trying to juggle 1,000 things at once? So that's the person in my mind's eye I really want to help at the end of the day. And Nemo, through the white labeling of our product to banks and lenders, they now can provide that omni-channel to Sally on the farm, with some really unique product offerings that enables her to lend money or borrow against her assets to be able to realize what she wants to do with that money. And for what it's worth, Nemo, not to be mistaken for Nemo the fish, it actually is an anagram of omni, being omni-channel, because one thing that we also saw back in banking days was omni-channel conflicts all the time. So Nemo, being an omni-channel service, will certainly help Sally on the farm and everyone else who needs to access funds.
I love the way you think about that persona, right? A lot of people don't think about the actual end customer, your customer's customer. So speaking about Sally and then making that real, that's a real problem you're solving for somebody at the end of the value at the end of the value chain. But for your customers, so tell us about your customers specifically, who you target and how they benefit from the ecosystem you put together versus trying to duct tape this stuff that they would typically have to deal with.
Yeah, absolutely. So if Sally is the end customer as a business to business offering, our customer is a bank or a lender. So it's either an ADI or bank or an non ADI. So um, that means a couple of things, particularly with our banks. It means that we work in a really heavily regulated environment, probably one of the most heavily regulated in the world. And so they're our customers. They white label our product. And as an ecosystem play, they are able to digitalize the lending experience from the moment of the application. So when Sally wants to start to enter her details, through to identification, verification, through to understanding her banking, financial position with banking statements. We have auto decisioning as part of that journey, and we take it all the way through to contracts and settlement. So that's the origination journey. So the bank will white label our product. The lender, Sally, will never know she's probably dealing with Nemo. She will think she's dealing with Bank A, and that will take her all the way through to contracts and to settlement. For some of our banks and lenders, we also do core banking, which is, I think, about digitalisation in two big buckets. Core banking is the second part. And once we move on to core banking, that's around how we service that loan, run the balance sheet, if you like, do internet banking, etc.
Mm.
Track delinquencies and so forth. So it's that white label product to banks and lenders. And because it's dynamic and we use a range of services in our ecosystem, so we have over 50 integrated parties. A lot of them are strategic parties. We have pre-built workflows. That's part of our secret sauce. We really are an out-of-the-box service. And with all these pre-built workflows and integrated services, it means that a lender, who's our customer, can switch on and off services quite easy. So it might be at the point of ID verification, a lender might use service X and another lender might use service Y. We have them all integrated, and literally all we need to do is enter the credentials, their secret code, and that
Mm.
service works instantly. So we look to simplify lending, not only for Sally on the farm, but also for the bank to be able to bring together the ecosystem and make their life much easier.
Because having been I've been in enterprise software for a long time, and you see that when you talk to enterprises, they're very reluctant to change. Bit like the Titanic, it takes a long time to steer people as well as systems, and there is that fear of, hey, this is highly regulated. We have to be very, very careful about what we do in a very conservative manner. So rather than ripping out things and replacing the entire system, you've come from it with a different angle, like with the more of the partnership and open ecosystem, where you can kind of pick and choose where you need to turn things off within the entire process. I think that's an important differentiation.
100%. I think the challenge with banks and lenders at the moment, they know they have to be digital. So it's not a matter of us trying to convince them about digitalisation. They know they've got to go there and all the efficiencies that it brings. But there's so many other vendors on the market, to be honest. I just came back from COBA, which is the mutual bank sector. It's their annual get together where they look at different problem statements, look at evolution and innovation, etc. And seriously, they walk into this room and they're surrounded with so many vendors, and they all say the same thing, that they do what we do. We, have a white label product, we do origination, core banking, etc. So I think it's really difficult to define yourself as different amongst that sea of vendors. But I think for us, what's really crucial in our offering is that we come from banking. Half our team are bankers. We know credit decisioning. We know the regulatory environment, and that's key. You've to know the regulatory environment in which you operate, and we've got to come at it from that perspective and then innovate. Whereas I think other players come at it from bright and shiny, I'm going to innovate first, or look at this cool tech that's being used elsewhere on the other side of the globe, but it's not fit for purpose for Australian banking. And that's a really important part of our journey. We use our campaign this year and message that we're really moving forward with our banks and lenders is about being safe and secure
Mm.
and being innovative for the future, saving vision for the future. And I think that's what we do really well. We balance the safe and secure, your ISO 2701, SOC 2, all the credentials that you need to have to be a material supplier to banks, but we balance that with innovation. And because we're a younger tech company, the stack that we build on, the code, the way in which we build, we can innovate and we can innovate fast, which if you make the link with AI, we've got to be moving fast because we don't want to be left behind.
Yeah, well, let's talk about AI. You've been recognized recently with an award for being a fintech leader, right? And
Yes, thank you. I'll take my bow, my virtual bow.
and part of working with large enterprise is you have to make them feel that you're there and you'll be a trusted partner, not just for that initial sale, but like to continue to like live alongside them and partner with them and bring innovation. Things like AI are coming out and how that's affecting the industry. Where do you see AI impacting the work that you do in your offering or just in the banks in general?
100% to your first point. We are a material provider. So our banks and lenders want to know that we're there for the long game, not for the short term. And we're true partners. And our current lenders will attest to the fact that we're decent folk, we know our stuff, and we are long-term players in the field. But being a fintech and having being the ecosystem player, it's on us to also be abreast of regulatory changes and what the appetite is for AI, how that lines up with privacy, etc. And I think that's what we really bring that's quite different to the table than other vendors. So if I think about AI specifically, there's absolutely a role to play. But given the governance, we're probably a little bit more risk adverse in terms of the application of AI. So it depends what flavor of AI, of course, you're
Mm.
talking about. If we're talking about rules based, Gen AI, etc. In my experience in banking and finance, where we've actually been doing a form of AI for years. If we think about rules based AI, and that's auto decisioning. It's automating the entire lending process. But when we talk about other flavors of AI, we are using it, and we're using the application we see of that is looking at agents, deploying agents to be able to pull data from one, perhaps way in which it's interpreted to another to pre-populate a form.
Mm.
One of our features we've just released, in fact, is our auto caller AI for the end customer, Sally on the farm, who needs to make a call into the bank. We now have an auto caller that can take that call at a time outside of 9 to 5 business hours and interact with Sally and populate the data that she needs to give to the bank in that way. And of course, we're using it internally. We're having loads of fun actually with AI in our learning and development stream, turning our learning and development functionality and being able to do that quicker and more efficiently. So we're using it in lots of different ways. What I would say though in banking and finance, perhaps different to other guests that you may have on, Sean, is that we are still heavily regulated and we need to have a glass box. Our regulators will want to know how decisions are being made, and we still have to be able to explain it. And we're not ready for a black box in financial services yet.
Yeah, and that's true, right? It's got to be deterministic. You have to know, how do I go back and if I'm auditing this thing, how did it actually make
100%.
that decision? Whereas with Gen AI, you get different answers every time.
Yeah.
And it does take a lot of grounding and knowledge base of, what's behind it. But even then, it will make different responses to you. So yeah, I understand how there'll be applications for it for sure for all companies. But yeah, for the highly regulated industries, I think they'll move a little bit slower. But to your point, the traditional AI has been around for a long time.
That's right.
So yeah, it's quite interesting how that is developing in these
Yeah. And
regulated.
and I MC a lot of conferences, and as you meet lots of guests, Sean, and your line of work, AI is at the center of nearly every conversation. It wouldn't be a conference unless we dived into AI. And what I've observed over financial services, like we see people dancing across the top, and I'm now beginning to see deeper, real use cases of AI. And I think the mindset has shifted, though, that we're looking at the problem first, then what's the solution? If AI is a part of it, that's great. But if there's another solution, then we should also look at it. And I think that's a little bit different to even 18 months ago where we had this bright and shiny tool.
Mm.
How can we use it and what can we apply it to? So it's good to see that mindset shift a little bit.
So when you talk to your banker friends or you talk to people that are other CEOs, how are you hearing them experiment or use AI, even if it's in their personal lives? Are you hearing any interesting stories around that?
Oh, well, Copilot, ChatGPT, if we think about personal lives, I think most people are not afraid of it anymore. I think, though, and I was listening to a speaker last week around worldwide adoption, like when it actually begins to have significant change on productivity in our ecosystem, we're miles away from that. And the irony is, AI moves so fast, but global adoption, how it fundamentally impacts productivity, I don't think we've even begun to scratch the surface of
Okay.
that. And financial services is a really good case in point. We're risk adverse, highly regulated, so we will take our time to do it. What I do see though amongst my peer group, particularly when I'm working with boards or and the like and directors. They're so excited about AI. You've got to be talking about it. If you're not talking about it, you're not really on the planet in some way, but you've got to still help to put the brakes on and cement it in what's real. And in my world, in financial services, it's taking it slow enough to consider the regulated environment, to consider the problem that we're solving for, to test, test, and test, have structure in place to allow ideas to flourish, but also have structures and systems in place, particularly with your tech teams, to allow ideas to go off and die, because that happens. A conference last week, again, the tech stream were really good in highlighting the fact that not all ideas come to bear, and there are lumps along the way, and they've got to have the permission to let ideas die. One of the other key takeaways I took from last week actually was the idea of fusion teams. We can't let it be anymore the fact that we have one person who's the AI expert in the business. We're now looking at fusion teams and multi-dimensional in terms of all of us embracing AI. Actually, one of the things, if I think about AI, and one of the gaps I see as the future evolves is potentially a skill gap in critical thinking. That's a conversation that I've been having with a lot of my peer group at the moment. Again, we've got AI, it's exciting. We can realize a lot of efficiencies and do some amazing things, and we're doing that at Nimo, both within and with our customers. And I think you made a point earlier, it's how you partner with things. And I think AI, think about it as a partnering tool, and it doesn't necessarily replace everything. I think it's a partnering tool. At Nemo, we're mindful of is still to develop critical thinking skills so that AI doesn't take over things completely. Our team have still got to have the critical thinking to look at the code, to critically evaluate the code, to critically evaluate the measurements and the outcomes. And I do wonder in years to come, and maybe in different sectors, whether we're going to see a generation where critical thinking and our ability to do that has shifted.
Yeah, it's a concern. I think if people who are using ChatGPT or Copilot or whatever immediately take the response and assume it's 100% factual,
That's right.
that's probably not the best use of AI. I think there still needs to be that human discernment. People thinking about what's the answer? Does this make sense? Is it factual? Right? We know AI doesn't always it hallucinates. So I think, yeah,
100%.
and in a regulated industry like yours, yeah, you can't afford to make that happen.
No, and that's why I still think in financial services, where whilst we need to move rapidly and innovate, and we're certainly doing that at Nemo, we've got to balance that with caution, the regulators, and still being able to explain things. I mean, we're looking after people's money. Our banks, our customers are responsible for looking after Sally on the farm, her money, the money she's invested, the money she's deposited, and that we take that very seriously.
So even in a conservative, let's say conservative, industry where, change doesn't happen immediately, like every day, because of these considerations, you still mention that word, innovation or, the importance of having people in teams that are thinking about things and how things you can be looking forward, always thinking what's next. So you've obviously picked that up over your years of, working in the police force and working in those transformation projects. Like, how do you, as a leader, kind of instill that in the culture of Nemo?
How do I instill it with Nemo? Yeah, role modeling, of course. I mean, I guess with me coming into the business with Peter, he still stays focused on product. We're growing our executive team and our leadership team. And I think with that growth comes diversity of thinking. So we really still have to create the space. And between Peter and I and our executive team and our leadership team, to research and develop, we put 70% of our revenues back into R&D. We've got to do it because it moves really fast. And we're not doing it just for the sake of doing it. We're doing it because customers expect it to be done. The customer requirements and their customer expectations. And as a consumer, I expect to have seamless services. And the benchmark, it keeps becoming higher and higher, but much more quickly. So, me as leader of Nemo, I've got to create the space and the time to allow the team to garner ideas, explore different concepts, to understand what's going on in the regulatory space, to be able to invent before we think we need it, to test and try, let some ideas die, let some ideas flourish. It's really creating that space and time. The second thing I would say, and I guess it's the org psychologist background in me, is challenging people's mindsets to think a bit differently. When you think about change and change management, it's encouraging people to let go of the old ways of doing things, challenging people to think, release the old ways of how I've thought about something and harness new ways of, the new ways of being. And part of that is about helping people push out of their comfort zones. Because Sean, I know you and we have ridden our bike together, and
You
we,
push me out of my comfort zone when I'm trying to sprint to the next light. You're like, go, go,
yeah,
go. You know,
yeah,
when cycling in the morning. Yes.
yeah. So the comfort zone for me is really important, and I know for like lots of your viewers, are probably familiar with comfort zone, and we use it a lot, whether it's in leadership development or work environment or even in the home environment. But the pushing people out of their comfort zones is a really important part of my leadership, whether it's on the bike or whether it's in the work environment, because unless we extend and expand that sort of that middle circle of comfort where it feels really nice and really warm and really inviting, it's really difficult to progress and to learn and adopt new ways of being. So, it's about pushing that circle broader and broader. And that's where real innovation is, helping the team to learn, giving them the space, giving them the guardrails to be able to grow and push beyond that comfort zone, and doing it in a way that they're not pushed to the terror zone and that they're scared of what they're doing. And we never want to be in the terror zone because, again, in a heavily regulated environment, that's not healthy for our product, for our lenders, and for the end consumer. So it's being able to do it safely.
So whether it's change with AI and you're innovating that way, you basically have to push yourself, but at the same time know your boundaries in terms of the
100%.
environment, what the environment is around you. And
Yeah.
I appreciate you pushing me, like making me go beyond my red line. I think sometimes when I'm on the bike and sprinting to that's next light, and yeah, definitely looking forward to getting back on the bike again soon.
And so,
Uh,
but you know what the funny thing is with bike riding? Like, you've got to be open to it. Not everyone wants to be pushed, right? And I think the same is of business. Like, you've got to, as a leader, you've got to read the room, read the appetite of the person involved. And, bike riding is voluntary. So, I do occasionally growl on the bike to keep people safe. But in terms of pushing them to that red line fever and pushing them out of the comfort zone on the bike, that's not for everybody. But people that ride with me and with us, Sean, they know what they're in for, I suppose. And the same is at Nemo. We are known for innovation. We're known for growth. We're known for creating and experimenting and doing new things, balancing that with the regulators. So people know that coming on board. But part of my job is to remind them why we are on the forefront, why we're pushing boundaries. And that requires letting go of some old notions or the way that we've done things in the past so that we can really innovate and find new ways of being.
and
Like
I
the
think
auto call is pretty cool. New ways of doing things. And it may not be innovative in other sectors, but it is in financial services because it's AI. So it's a real adoption of how that's being used.
I think all companies are looking at AI now and they're thinking, okay, how do I adopt this? Yes, you're in an industry that's very highly regulated. Others can be more experimental and just
Yeah.
like implement right away because the mistakes that can be made are not as impactful as the ones that you're talking about on your side. But I think to your point, it takes a mindset, it takes the leadership to guide people in that direction, whether you're pushing people to make them ride faster in a group bunch ride, or you're leading a
Yep.
team, or you're having to make people think outside of what they would normally see. Because if you're standing still, then your competitors are still moving forward. So I think that's a good lesson in what you've brought is to share, how you've developed Nemo. And look, it's going to be really interesting to see how things develop and where Nemo goes and the growth and the development of your executive leadership team and all of that. So yeah, I wish you all the best for that. I want to thank you so much for joining, and I'd give you one more opportunity to kind of share one valuable lesson that you would maybe tell the audience or maybe the next guest on this show.
Oh, one piece of advice. I've probably got lots of pieces of advice, but finding that striking the balance is really important. And in our case, the balance is regulation with innovation. I think we've struck the balance really well. People are at the heart of everything. So, as a team that is onshore in Melbourne, we are accessible, we are agile and flexible. That's a really important part of our secret sauce. And on just a really basic operational note, for any of your founders and that listen in and view your podcast, R&D grant money. We didn't know about R&D grant money in the early days, and it was a bit of a misgiving because I think it could have helped us. If you're in an industry that you are experimenting and creating something new, and there are a number of benchmarks and criteria that a company needs to abide to or adhere to in order to harness the R&D money, it's a game changer, Sean. So that's my, I guess, piece of advice I'd give to any startups or founders. Get in early on your R&D knowledge and the criteria. If you've got the bandwidth and the resources, partner with someone who can help you navigate your R&D grant. And I know for us, as time evolved, it was an absolute game changer, the R&D money.
Okay.
To the point that we've stayed self-funded. We've not taken investment off anyone, and we're really proud of the fact that we're a profitable, sustainable business, Australian-owned, Australian-made, and there are some really good government supports out there. You just got to know that they're there and know what you're hunting for.
Oh, excellent. No, that's great. Thank you for sharing that for anyone who might be starting a company and looking for R&D money. So that's a great share. If people want to learn more about Nemo Industries or connect with you at a next event, where they might run into you next?
They will run into me next at Intersect, actually. We've got it's run by FinTech Australia. Intersect Festival is on next week. It's 2 days, and it's where all the FinTech people get together. And they're not channeling Woodstock or anything. There's some nice food and chatter, of course, but we delve into all the really important issues in financial services and technology. It really is the intersection of banking and tech. And I'll be there speaking next Thursday on a panel, and I'll be in the environment, collaborating with my peers and understanding what the future of fintech holds and banking and finance. So that's where you'll find me. But if you don't have the opportunity to come to Intersect, our website, jump on the Nemo website, nemoindustries.com, and you can contact me and the team through that channel. And or LinkedIn. I'm Leann without an E, so it's easy to find Leann Jones. And LinkedIn, I always welcome any LinkedIn messages of hello and will respond in kind.
Great. Thank you so much, Leanne. Really appreciate you joining and sharing all your knowledge and a bit about your journey and Nemo. And look forward to seeing you on the road.
Thanks. You too, Sean. See you on the road.